I've been very much having to practice something called self-control. So I seen this video on my Yap list called Dr. K Explains the Science of Self-Control. So we're going to watch it. Cause yeah. It is a shitty thing, self-control, you know, you see a chocolate bar or something, or you see like cake, and you're like, oh my god, I want the cake. Oh my god, please just put it in my mouth. Or, you know, you go to the store or something and you see like this cool looking controller and you're like, holy shit, add to cart. Or, you know, you open up Gamer Sups and they have this awesome new flavor called blueberry they have this awesome new flavor of blueberry lemonade and you're like, holy freaking shit, add to freaking cart. Yeah, self-control. What is that? Exactly. I have good self-control, except with commissions, almost $200 spent on some. Damn. Honestly, yeah. I haven't made commissions in a while until very recently, and it was like, whew, it was hard, but I was desperate to wait until I had my live 2D. Because I was like, nope, there's no point in getting more commissions of myself right now until I have the live 2D. I'm trying to have self-control. Been a while since I've bought anything for myself, and I'd like to get myself something. Oh, Slasher, it is absolutely okay to treat yourself sometimes. 100%. Good to have the self-control, but definitely okay to treat yourself once in a while. You gotta enjoy the money that you're working hard for. This is what I believe. Not irresponsibly, but responsibly. Alright. Let's learn about self-control. Let's go.
Today, we're going to talk about the science of self-control and evidence-based techniques to boost your self-control.
Ooh. The science of self-control.
So the basic problem here is that you want to do stuff, right?
Yes.
You want to eat healthier, you want to exercise more, you want to wake up on time, you want to go to bed on time. You want to spend less time on your phone. But the problem is that you don't really listen to you, right?
No. Look, okay, maybe the eating healthier, yes. Maybe that one, possibly, you know. But I still want cake, and I still want chocolate. The going to the gym, probably not. Maybe just work out a little bit more at home. I don't have the self-control to pay attention to what the dude is saying. Teagle! Focus.
Right? And so what we end up doing is we try to find solutions for our problems. And you'll maybe do a Google search or watch a YouTube video about how to eat healthy or how to actually go to bed on time.
I don't do that at all.
I want to take a moment to thank the sponsor of today's video, Babbel. Babbel is the top language learning app worldwide, and I can't advocate for it enough. Part of what I love about Babbel is that it's designed by real language teachers, so they know exactly what a student needs to learn a language. And they also use evidence-based techniques to optimize learning in a short amount of time. I really wish that I had access to this when I was actually in med school.
Just babbling in different languages.
So easy. I'm learning a lot of very common phrases that doctors would actually need to use to communicate with their patients. I, for example, am learning medical Spanish, which I wish I had access to when I was actually in med school. So I'm learning how to say beba agua y descanse, which means drink water and rest. The last thing that I really love about Babbel is that it's
tell me
very
what to do
in all of the in-between
But fine, I'll drink a
spaces
little
of
bit of my
life.
sploosh.
So part of the problem is that learning a new language takes a lot of time, but I love that I can replace the boring, wasteful stuff that I do on my phone with actually learning medical Spanish. So I can't thank Babbel enough for sponsoring today's video, and strongly recommend that y'all check out the awesome offer, which is 60% off your subscription in the link below. Thank you once again to Babbel for sponsoring today's video and making mental health content on the internet free. And so we end up trying to fix these problems individually. But in the back of your mind, you probably know that if you could just be better at controlling yourself, all of these things would get better. If you were better at self-control, you'd be able to eat healthy, you'd be able to be more motivated at work,
Hell
you'd be able
yeah.
to suppress and control your burnout.
Just
And
be
so then
better.
we end up doing things to try to boost our self-control. Like sometimes we'll even take supplements that are supposed to be cognitive enhancers, or we'll do really hard
Really?
things like take cold showers. Because taking a cold
What?
shower is hard, and if I can force myself to do it, then I should be able to force myself to do all of the other stuff. And it
No.
turns out, though, that that doesn't really work. Because
No. I've never taken a cold shower. That sounds very unpleasant. I've taken a cold shower before when it was really hot. Okay. Like, but does that count? Does that count? I, like, not cold. Like, I've done that too, but it wasn't cold. It was just kind of like, it was like cool. But other than that, no. No, I like my warm showers.
if cold showers increased everybody's self-control, then we'd have a lot of data supporting that, and everyone would be taking cold showers. It turns out that if you look at it scientifically, what cold showers make you good at is tolerating cold showers.
Yeah,
And that's what's so elusive about self-control, that we can get good at a particular task, but that doesn't actually translate over into the other parts of our lives. And the reason for that is because we haven't really understood the science of self-control until now. And there have been a couple of, in my opinion, revolutionary studies that have completely changed our perspective on self-control. In fact, they've shown us that self-control doesn't really exist. And paradoxically, it's through understanding this that we will learn the best scientifically validated methods to improve our self-control. And if this is so revolutionary, why haven't you heard about it, and why aren't people talking about it? There are a couple reasons for that. The first is really simple. It's actually really, really hard to understand because it completely changes our perspective on self-control. And the second thing is that the discovery isn't sexy at all. In fact, it is quite disappointing. And at the same time, now
it's not sexy. Is that what you just said? It's not sexy to think that there's no such thing as self-control. Okay, I heard him correctly. What? Because we must consume no time for self-control? Literally. There is no time for self-control. There is. We're working all the time. We're working all the time. I was just about to make fun of that before you did. I'm like, what? Sexy? What?
Now that we know this, now that we literally understand where self-control originates in the brain, we can actually do things to significantly boost our self-control.
Okay.
So let's start by understanding what we do know about self-control.
Okay.
So a couple thousand years ago, a group of yogis sitting in India basically discovered something, that awareness precedes control. And when I teach this principle, either as a psychiatrist or a meditation instructor, I kind of point out that, okay, if you kind of go to the dentist and you get something numbed up, you can't feel your mouth anymore. And if you can't feel your mouth anymore, you can't control your mouth. Water will spill out. If I was talking like this, you can't really like...
I freak. Oh my god, I hate that feeling. I hate that feeling so much. Especially when you are trying to, afterwards, you are trying to have like a drink or something. And you're like trying so hard to have it on the side that's only... that you can feel. Ugh. I hate it.
Understand what people are saying, people can't understand you. Right? So I sort of use this kind of analogy that, okay, if you get something numbed up, you can't control it anymore.
Yeah.
And it turns out that while that analogy seemed really good, it's actually wrong. And it goes way deeper than that. In the 90s and 2000s, there were a group of psychologists who tried to figure out what is going on with self-control. What is it really? Because the basic idea that we had at the time was that self-control is essentially like a personality characteristic. It's a part of who you are. And if you've got the right genes and if you've got the right upbringing, that if you're 20 years old and you've been raised with discipline, then you will continue to be disciplined.
I mean, I guess that's kind of true.
Fixed aspect of who you are as a person. And this group of researchers...
Yeah, I've heard that. A lot of people are like, oh, well, if you were raised properly, you'll have more self-control and whatever.
Basically discovered that it's not a fixed aspect of who you are as a person, but a diminishing resource. It's not something that's on your character sheet as a trait. It's actually like a mana bar that can be depleted over time. And this sort
Okay.
of makes sense, right? Because
We're
we kind
going
of know that
into
on some days we're able to control
game
ourselves.
analogy.
But on days where there's a lot of stuff going on and we have to exert a lot of self-control,
Ooh.
when I've had a really rough day at work and I want to yell at my boss and I restrain myself all day, at the end of the day, I can't bring myself to eat a salad.
Yeah, if you have like a shitty day, and then at the end of the day, you're like, you know what? Freaking screw it. I'm just having a whole tub of ice cream. I don't give a shit. I'm eating this whole tub of ice cream. That makes complete sense. Because, yeah, I've been there, done that plenty of times. I have like a real shit day or something, or like a whole shit week, and then at the end of the week, I'm like, you know what? I'm treating myself to freaking sushi or something. Or I'm getting these things that I really want. Screw it. Yep. 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 It's harder to control the impulse urges because you're just like done. You're done with dealing with bullshit. This video is very poignant. Frick my life. Hold.
Poignant.
Poignant. Poignant. Okay. Thank you, Slasher, for teaching me a new word. Oh, man. On point. Okay. And yeah, same. That's why I wanted to watch this. Why I wanted to watch this today. Because I am very heavily focusing on my diet lately, and it's taking a lot of self-control. A lot. In that case, I have a lot of self-control. That's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome.
And I just order a pizza and I sit down.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I'm just done with the day.
Pizza.
So they basically discovered that the more self-control you exert, the more it depletes.
Yes. Okay,
and once
that makes
researchers
sense.
had figured out that it is a diminishing resource, naturally the next thing that they looked at is what diminishes self-control the most. And what we basically figured out is there are two things that severely drain your self-control.
Okay.
The first is emotional regulation.
Yes.
So if you spend
my
a lot of time suppressing or regulating your emotions, if you want to tell someone to go screw themselves and you have to hold that in, then you will diminish your reserve of self-control. That's number one. The second thing,
Just tell them how it is.
Self-control is stress. Because let's be honest, stress is bad at everything. Stress is bad. Stress is bad. Stress is going to reduce your self-control.
Look.
But they literally found that. They found that people who were
honestly, at this point, I feel like I'm just used to this. I'm just used to stress. Honestly. It's a miracle that I haven't hit any of my coworkers yet. Oh my gosh. You know what? Frick you. Smack. Maybe don't do that. Maybe just tell them off, and then you won't diminish your self-control as much.
in more stressful situations had a lower reserve of self-control and could not exert that to do healthy behaviors. And that kind of makes sense, right? Because stress makes everything worse.
Yes.
And then there were a group of researchers that showed up and said, okay, what can we do to boost self-control? And no surprise, meditation helps us boost self-control.
Meditate.
Because you should meditate more. If you meditate, you will be more in control.
Hell yes. Okay,
but
meditation.
Then, like I said earlier, this gets us back to the
Learning.
original problem where if I had the self-control to meditate every day, I wouldn't need to meditate every day. If I could force myself to sit down, then I wouldn't be in this problem in the first place. And this is where we come to the truly revolutionary research. So a group of scientists sat down and they sort of figured out, okay, so we know that emotional regulation and stress reduce our capacity for self-control. Then they asked the question, what's going on in the brain when emotional regulation and stress actually drain our self-control? Which part of the brain is actually being drained? And they
Really?
use something called an
That-
EEG, which
What?
measures the electrical activity.
What? Okay. I didn't know they could pinpoint that. My stress has become a numbing feeling. Aw, Annie, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that, but I completely understand. Have a good night, Dread. Thanks for hanging out a bit. I actually started my meditation again, but I get it's not for everyone. Ooh, that's awesome. What do you do for meditation? I don't really have I don't know. I don't really like meditate or anything to relieve stress. I think for me, if I'm just able to kind of sit down and watch TV shows or enjoy a game or anything like that is like meditation for me in a way, because I can kind of just focus on the show or whatever. I just those are the moments where I can just finally turn off my brain and not think about stuff. I get to just sit there and for once do nothing. So yeah.
Of the brain. And they discovered something really fascinating, that there's this part of our brain called the anterior cingulate cortex. And the anterior cingulate cortex is responsible for monitoring internal conflict. And what they essentially discovered is when we stop monitoring our internal conflict, our capacity for self-control goes out the window. So this was kind of a weird finding, because it sort of suggested that self-control isn't really a thing, but simply that what self-control really is our capacity to monitor internal conflict. And if you sort of stop and think about it, you'll notice this, right? Because when do we exert self-control? We only exert self-control when there is an internal conflict.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So generally speaking in human...
Oh, okay, so when internal conflict, so when you're like sitting there like, do I want the steak or the chicken? Do I want a blanket that is gray or a blanket that is red? And okay, so when you want to buy something, for example, yeah, you're like, do I want this purple Xbox controller or the white Xbox controller? You're having like an internal conflict. Do I want to smack this person, or do I hold myself back from smacking? Do I yell at my coworker or do I not yell at my coworker? Pretty much all of that.
Behavior, I have an automatic impulse. I want to eat a slice of pizza.
Hell yes.
There's another part of my brain that says, actually, we should eat a salad. And in that moment, when you exert self-control, there's actually a conflict between one part of you and the other part of you. That's literally why we call it self-control, because you are trying to control yourself and the self actually wants to do something else. Now, we've assumed, based on our subjective experience, that there's actually a control aspect going on, but it turns out that that's actually not the case. It turns out that what these researchers discovered is, as long as the conflict is being monitored, we will be in control. But the moment we stop monitoring the conflict, we lose all control. And you may have actually noticed this, because it sounds kind of weird, right? But just like pay attention to your particular circumstance, where you fight a battle in your mind. And then as long as you're fighting that battle, you're still sort of in control. But the moment that you stop paying attention and the moment that the battle disappears is the moment that we lose control. Now, this is where we think that the reason we stop monitoring the battle is because we've lost or we've won, right? That's what we sort of assume. The battle is over.
So if you're like not paying attention to the problem anymore, I want to smack this person, but I'll go to jail if I do. So maybe in that case scenario, you kind of lose sight of the going to jail part, and then you just do it anyways. And then you're like, oh, shit. I have a special energy aura meditation I also just listen to peaceful music, or the binaural beats ones are the best for me with my headphones. Closing my eyes helps me zone out and relax. Ooh, that sounds nice, actually. I think Jello likes to use music as well to kind of meditate, because he likes to put on his headphones and do the same sort of thing. Like, he'll put on his headphones and walk around and stuff, But yeah, I think he kind of does like sort of the same thing. Do I want to go to bed or watch Hoshi? Wait, that's obvious. Obviously, watch Hoshi. Duh. Wonder if this goes for emotions as well. I I think it probably could apply to emotions 100%. If it helps, I was going to do my I was going to play my new game and now I'm drawn in. we learning some self-control today. The science. We sciencing. Katsuya. Let the bodies hit the floor. Let the bodies hit the floor. That's literally Jello's like, I'm gonna listen to music and then I'm like, okay, yeah, you're going into your like meditation. And then literally same. Literally same. He's like, I'm gonna listen to music and meditate. And then all of a sudden you just hear this loud screaming music with and I'm like, oh gosh. I'm like, oh okay. Alright.
That's why I stopped paying attention. And this is completely natural because the two happen really closely together. We stop thinking about it after we lose, right? And then we kind of give in to the behavior. But it turns out that it's actually the other way around. It is that when we stop monitoring it, that's when we lose the battle. And you may have kind of noticed this, that in the back of your mind, you're kind of arguing with yourself, but you sort of like, and then you stop thinking about it. And before you realize it, your phone is in your hand and you're kind of waving it around and you're scrolling in bed. Before you realize
I feel like maybe this is referring to, like, let's say you're sitting there, you're at a party. You're at a party and you've been trying to like be on a healthy streak. So at the party there's like pizza and there's like a Caesar salad. So you're sitting there like, "Oh man, do I cave and have some of the pizza, or, you know, do I keep up my streak and eat the salad?" And then, you know, you're kind of like sitting there conflicted. And then finally you're like, you know what? It's just this one day, so then you go have the pizza. So maybe that's what he's thinking, or that's maybe that's what he's talking about. Have a single leaf of lettuce and have pizza. If you put the Caesar salad on the pizza, then you're technically having salad with pizza. Right? Then it's not so bad, right? Just put some pineapple on pizza, problem solved. Look, pineapple on pizza is not that bad, okay? I actually don't mind it. Just have a supreme pizza. Is that the one with like a bunch of vegetables? If there's peppers and olives on the pizza, then it's just a salad with cheese and bread. Julius found the loophole. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We have ads. I'm playing them now. Ads. Not the ads. But yeah, like, I'm kind of lost. I'm kind of lost on what he means by, like, you stop monitoring it. So, to me, I'm kind of understanding it as that, where you're conflicted. You're like, do I have the pizza or the salad? Do I have the pizza or the salad? And then you're kind of like, whatever. It's just this one time. It's not going to be a big deal. So then in that moment, you lost sight of your goal. So then you lose and you cave in and you have the pizza. Crusted. The crust is the crouton. You know, could make that argument. You stop monitoring the conflict, maybe subconsciously or semi-consciously. Yeah. Yep. Pretty much. And that does usually happen. Like, now that I'm thinking of it, that usually does happen after I've had like a long bad day. And then I'm like sitting there at the end of the day like, oh man. I should have just like, you know, just this piece of chicken with some veggies. But man, that chocolate. That chocolate. And then I'll be like, You know what? It was a shitty day today. I deserve a treat. Just one time, and then another one time, and another, and another. Yep. Exactly. Exactly. That's the part that I got lost on too, because I felt like what we are supposed to be arguing with ourselves then and not let it go. Because when we let it go, we do the thing. Yep. You just continuously argue with yourself. Forever. Forever and ever. But, yeah, I mean, yes, kind of like not argue with yourself, but like, let the good side win. Not the ads, Rose! Rose! Not the ads! I'm so sorry. We will be back momentarily. Sometimes it feels like a switch has flipped in my head. Other times I don't realize it. Yup. It is an everyday battle. It's an everyday battle. And you're gonna slip up sometimes, and that's okay. Because we're human. It is okay. You slip up, and you just carry on. You carry on. Ads are done. Heck yeah. I'm always arguing with myself when I'm at work. Do I just say fudge it and leave? Or do I keep mopping the floor? Do I leave this small little puddle so someone will slip and fall? Or do I clean it all up appropriately? Do I leave? Do I quit? Do I find another job? Yup. Do I stay or do I go? Except for Dread, he's a robot. True. True, maybe Dread doesn't have these conflicts. Any day can be a half day if you don't come back from lunch. I'm sorry I got lost. I got lost on my lunch break and I ended up at home. Would you look at that? Do I become a hermit and live in the woods? Oh my god. We'll just build a big fluffle cabin in the woods. The big fluffle cabin in the woods. Let's go. Let's go. Alright, let's continue learning.
That you've turned on the light or opened up your tablet and you've started to watch something. And even working as an addiction psychiatrist, when I talk to patients about their relapse, they don't relapse after a long and drawn out battle of like resisting. You kind of give up in your mind and you kind of stop thinking about it. And then you're engaging in the behavior before you even realize it. And so this is exactly what the researchers discovered, that conflict monitoring is self-control. But hold on a second, Dr. K. What about all this stuff around emotional regulation and stress? Because we know that those two things deplete self-control the most. But you're telling me that simply monitoring conflict is self-control. How does that relate? And it turns out that it fits perfectly. So if we look at emotional regulation, what are we literally doing in emotional regulation? We are suppressing our internal emotions. I want to tell my boss to go screw himself. But instead of paying attention to that, I'm going to shut off that part of my mind. And shockingly, when I shut off my internal awareness, I shut off my ability to monitor conflict. And as I shut off the part that is responsible for self-control, shockingly, my self-control worsens. So emotional regulation fits perfectly because literally what you're doing is shutting off that conflict monitoring part intentionally so that getting pissed off doesn't take control and actually cause you problems, right? So that sort of makes sense. That as we suppress our internal awareness, we will lose the capacity for self-control. What about stress, though? So stress is also something that fits perfectly because when we are stressed out, literally what our brain is doing is externalizing our...
I get it. sort of, but I don't know how. It's funny because like I sort of get what he's talking about, but like at the same time I don't know how to explain it. It's basically you're just always trying, you always have to keep that awareness, I guess, around. Like, you're aware of your when you're talking to someone, you're constantly aware of how they're feeling, how things you might say might affect them and stuff. But as soon as you just don't care anymore and you're just like, whatever, I don't care how they feel. So then you stop uh taking that time to be aware of things, then you kind of just say whatever you want. And then it doesn't go so well. Like, I don't know, you're sitting there um and you look at someone and you're like, "Oh, their hair looks weird today," or something. And then but you're aware of the fact that like, "Oh, that might upset them if I say that." So you're not going to say that. Or versus you see this person and their hair looks weird, and you don't really think of how that will make them feel if you say it, so then you kind of just blurt it out. You're like, "Oh, hey, your hair looks weird today." Something like that. Something like that. Welcome back, Teagle. Our brain is indeed weird. Yes. I do agree with that. I do agree.
Attention. When you are stressed out, you are not thinking or paying attention to this. You are paying attention to the problems outside that are going to screw you.
Yes.
Right? So when I'm stressed out about a test, I'm not paying attention to the internal environment. I'm thinking about the test. When I'm stressed out about my boyfriend or girlfriend breaking up with me, I'm not thinking about how I feel. I'm thinking about how do I prevent this disaster. So now we see another really interesting point of evidence, which is that when we are stressed out, literally what our brain does is externalizes our attention to solve the problems that cause us stress. And shockingly, when I externalize my attention, what do I stop paying attention to? My internal conflict. So we actually see that this old research about emotional regulation and stress causing reductions in self-control fits perfectly with this model that conflict monitoring is literally self-control. And so what does that mean for you? A couple of really simple things. The first is that the more of your emotions that you have to suppress, the worse your self-control will get. And this kind of makes sense because if we look at addiction psychiatry, the more emotionally turbulent someone is, the more likely they are to use and relapse and not control their behavior.
Yep, that's true.
The crappier your life is emotionally, the more likely you are to give into bad behaviors. Binge eat, comfort food. When do you need comfort food? When you need comfort. When do you need comfort? When there's badness in here.
Yes.
So the first thing that we've got to do is learn how to alternately regulate our emotions. So this can be everything from going to therapy to journaling to taking walks. But what you need to understand is that you cannot improve your self-control if you are emotionally turbulent. That fixing the emotional turbulence is the same thing as improving your self-control. That's number one.
Okay, well then there's the answer. I guess there's the answer to if this can affect emotions and stuff. That's the big, one of the big culprits is being able to be aware of your emotions and kind of keep them under control to the best of your ability. Obviously, sometimes it's gonna get out of hand, but to the best of your ability. Always be aware of your emotions. Don't ignore them. And yeah.
Number two. What about stress? Because this is where we could say, but okay, Dr. K, so are you saying that as long as I'm stressed out, that I won't be able to control myself? And that's where the science really comes in and says, not quite. Because I'm not saying that you have to solve all of your problems, but instead what you need to do is re-internalize your awareness. And this is the mistake that we make. When I'm focused on solving problems, let's say I have a final coming up and I'm afraid to fail it. What I start doing is stop paying attention to myself. I stop paying attention to my hunger signals. I stop paying attention to
okay, you start to basically neglect yourself because all you can think about is the upcoming exam. And you're like, "Oh my god, blah, what do I do? What do I do? I can't eat and this and that." Okay, Julius, have a good night. Thanks for hanging out. Wait, so does that mean my life sucks because I thought I was doing pretty good, but I eat like 3 people's worth of food every you might want to just tone down the portions, Teagle, just a little bit. Just a little bit. Maybe start with only 2 people's worth of food every meal. There's good stress and bad stress. Ooh, what would be considered good stress? I'm curious. I've never been stressed before exams. So 2.5, got it. Yep. Okay, yeah, baby steps. Baby steps, you'll get there. Baby steps. I never studied for them. Honestly, I don't remember doing a lot of studying myself. I would sit down and be like, okay, I need to study, and then I would like sit there and make some notes and stuff, but that was like, I never sat there, and like some people would talk about how they studied for hours and hours, and then I'm just sitting there like, I just like read over the thing a couple of times. I don't know. I never felt like I could retain the information that way, honestly. Good stress is working out, running, lifting weights, going to the gym. Oh, okay. Okay, I see. That makes sense. 200 people's worth. It has a 2 in it, so I'm good right now. Yeah, that's true. Kind of like how the 150 had a 15 in it, so it was fine. The 200 has a 2 in it, so it's okay. You really don't have to study if you pay attention in class. Yeah, I really never found the need to do a lot of studying. Just paying attention in class won't do it for me. I find that I learn the easiest through either hands-on or being shown how to do stuff. Like show me and then let me do it. And that's how I learn the best. If you give me something like an instruction manual to read, I can read it. But and then when I'm doing the thing, I'm gonna be needing to look at the instructions back and forth. Like you can't just let me read something and then I'll do it because I don't work that way. It doesn't work that way. But paying attention means I have to pay attention, and that's boring. It's boring. I don't want to pay attention. I want to just eat my lunch behind my textbook while the teacher's talking.
My fatigue signals, I stop paying attention to everything in here because I'm so focused out there. So it's not that you need to fix all of the problems in your life to gain self-control. It's that you need to re-internalize your awareness. So anytime you're feeling stressed out, try to take 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes to just check in with yourself. Sit down or go for a walk and just ask yourself, how am I feeling right now? Just take a moment to literally re-internalize your awareness. Just pay attention to what's going on.
Okay.
And then you may say, but Dr. K, that won't be enough. Even if I pay attention, how do I start doing healthy things? And this is the revolutionary and confusing thing, is that the two are actually the same. Literally all you need to do is increase awareness of the internal self. As you increase that awareness, you will be boosting that conflict monitoring system in the anterior cingulate cortex. It's not that self-control is separate from awareness. It's that the two are actually exactly the same thing. So as long as you can pay attention to your internal signals, literally your self-control will improve because the circuits are one and the same. What we subjectively experience as self-control is different from what is actually going on in the brain. So a good example of this is if I'm nervous, I will say I have butterflies in my stomach. But I don't literally have butterflies in my stomach. It is just the way that I subjectively experience nausea or anxiety or whatever.
Yeah. That's why that won't do when I'm stressed at work. True. Yeah, because it's hard to be like, I need to take a moment and step out. They're going to be like, But you need to like watch the machine or or something. I never paid attention in class to something I wasn't interested in, and I still managed to pass my exams. Damn, Ketsuya's a pro. I feel like that would stress me out more. First of all, I don't have time to do that at work. I barely have enough time to do what I need to in my shift. Yeah, at work it's a little harder. But so what he's saying reminds me of people who, when you get into an argument, and for me, for example, like if Jello and I are having like a disagreement or something, he'll often need to maybe take a step back, maybe take like 10 minutes or something to kind of just like get ourselves together. Because some people in the moment, and I used to not, I used to have a hard time with that. I still kind of do have a hard time with it because I'm like, no, we need to fix it. We need to fix it right now. We need to fix it right now. But I think a lot of people kind of need to step away from a situation so that they can like collect themselves before they can properly solve a problem, because it gives them the time to kind of just cool down, gather their thoughts, maybe understand themselves on, okay, why am I feeling this way about this argument? And then you can approach it in a much healthier like way instead of just impulsively exploding at each other. I wish my boyfriend understood that I'm the type of person who needs to step away sometimes. Yeah. It's really hard, like when you both don't have that kind of thing that you need to do. It's hard. And actually, because Jello does it sometimes, I've also found it very helpful if I do it. and that's been a very helpful thing to learn too. I'm like, huh, you know, if I do this too, actually, I can explain myself better. That's how I am too. If you tell a guy to fix something, he will fix it. You don't have to remind him every 6 months. In 6 months, there could be 6 other things that need to be fixed. Like, oh, thanks. Thanks for doing the thing that I asked you to do 6 months ago. Now here's 6 more.
And instead, there's an actually discrete neuroscientific mechanism. And so if you kind of stop and think about it, the solution to getting rid of butterflies in your stomach is not to remove the butterflies in your stomach. It's to address what's actually going on in the brain.
Yeah, get yourself
so
prepared.
Even if you accept that, you may be saying, okay, so I need to internalize my awareness when I'm stressed out. But then what? How do I exert self-control? And this is exactly why this is so hard to understand. You don't actually need to do anything else. That self-control and awareness of your internal state, specifically awareness of conflicts within you, is literally the same thing as self-control. And that sounds really confusing because subjectively, that's not really what it feels like, right? And this is exactly what the problem is as we try to figure out how do I control myself, we don't find any good evidence-based answers because none of them exist. And now we actually come full circle to meditation. Because why is meditation so good at improving self-control? Because when I'm doing meditation, all I'm doing is paying attention to my breath. That's not controlling my breath. It's not resisting my breath. It's just paying attention. And that's literally because these two functions are the same in the brain. So it turns out that the yogis actually had it right all along. And even what I was saying earlier about awareness precedes control is actually incorrect. It's not that awareness precedes control. It's that awareness is control. And so the last thing that you can do, which I know sounds crazy, is actually meditate. But even in this way, you don't have to do a formal meditation practice. Literally, the muscle of self-control is the muscle of conflict monitoring. So all you need to do is pay attention to your internal conflict. And the more that you sit with that conflict, the more you will be able to exert control.
Pay attention to yourself.
What I'll leave y'all with is if you even kind of think about the times in your life where you exert self-control. you kind of are aware of that conflict, and then you kind of have this idea of just do it, right? You kind of make up your mind and you just do it. And so if we sort of stop and think about it, then it becomes easy. You're like, yeah, I just woke up one day and I just did it. And so everyone on the internet is telling you to just do it. But that's hard because you don't know how to just do it. And that's the beautiful thing. If you look at every person who has decided to just do it, all of that just doing it was preceded by a very high awareness of internal conflict. And if we're talking about someone who overcomes an addiction, what we literally do in psychotherapy is become aware of that conflict over and over and over again. And then one day, an addict wakes up and becomes sober. They just wake up and they just do it.
They just
so
do
if you want to
it.
do that for your life and develop self-control, what you really need to do is actually not just do it. You're trying to solve the wrong problem, which is exactly why it doesn't work. Instead, all you need to do is pay attention to your internal conflict. And the longer you can be aware of it, the more in control you will be.
Okay. Okay. Just do it. None of this makes sense. Not gonna lie, none of this makes sense. I don't know if that's because I went to the store for most of this, or I'm just a lost cause. like I get it, but it's very complicated. 100%. I'm stretching. Oh. And I'm sitting straight and I'm having some sploosh. I get what he's talking about, but it is definitely very complicated. I would not know how to explain this to someone. It's a very hard topic to try and explain. There's no way. You basically just have to try to remain self-aware all the time. You know, be aware when you're getting angry at something, don't just, explosively get angry. Take a step back and question yourself, like, well, okay, why am I feeling so angry right now? And this and that. And get, like, an understanding of your own feelings so that you can kind of, like, approach the situation better and all that stuff. That's kind of what my understanding has been of it. That's what my understanding has been. And, I mean, it makes sense. It's just complicated. Very complicated.